Yeah.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another Tuesday Tips. Brought to you by Helmet Deed Official. Carter and Perry back again,
Yeah.
rocking the tips,
Knocking them out, man.
knocking them out. Yeah, we're on a roll, dude. Okay, this is a topic we've done before, but it warrants doing over and over again because you want to do it properly. A couple of the boys in the Southeast chat suggested maybe we could cover how to fly with guns,
Yep.
which is important.
Very important. And, like you said, it's something that warrants revisiting, and the people ask for it, so we got to give the people what they want, Carter.
We're men of the people.
That's right.
Yeah. So flying with guns. This is something you and I've done several times.
Yes.
I've got it down pat where it doesn't stress me out anymore. I remember the first time I flew with a firearm, I was way nervous. It was for my
Same.
first. Yeah, it was my first antelope trip in Wyoming, and I was a nervous Nelly, dude, because my home airport is Atlanta, Hartsfield Jackson, and it is a busy. It's a busy place, and you don't want to be the guy that hassles or holds anything up. So I wanted to make sure all my T's were crossed and my I's were dotted.
Yeah. Yeah, same, man. So similar. I always fly out of Charlotte Douglas, and pretty busy airport. It's not. We were just talking before we press record here. Like, a lot of this honestly comes down to how much experience the TSA folks have and the various airports have with seeing folks flying in and out with firearms or bows or what have you. The first time I did, just walking into the airport, man, with the with that gun case was
Yep.
like, people are looking at you as all nervous. I'm like, and then you go through the process, and at the end of the day, most of the time, in my fairly limited experience, I haven't done it a ton, but I've done it a handful of times. Most of the time, it's not that big of a deal, and you get through the
Yep.
other side, you're like, okay, this is fairly, as long as you use some good common sense stuff and you don't be a tool,
Yep.
you're gonna be fine.
Yeah, I guess your first tip, if you've never done this before, is you want to be unmemorable. You just want to be
Yes.
a member of the GP and not raise any eyebrows and just go through and treat it just like you're checking a regular bag. I remember that first time we walked in there and I was rolling that gun case behind me. You feel a little naughty, right? Like you're breaking the rules, and
Right.
you go up. If you've never done it before, you need to go up where you check your bags at the counter, and then you have to declare while you're checking your bags in, hey, I have a firearm. I like to declare a firearm. So you declare while you're checking your luggage, and I remember this lady, as we started weaving through the line to get up to the counter, she was like, this older black woman, she was like, "You got guns?" And I was like, it was like 5 a.m. or something like that. And she's just hollering, dude, just, "You got guns?" I'm like, "Oh, keep it down, keep it down." Right? She worked there, and it was like no big deal. She's like, "Yeah, like come on up here, no big deal." And so once you declare that you have your firearms, they have you open the case,
Yep.
and you sign a firearm, whatever,
A little paperwork, a little form.
a little paper that says I acknowledge these are my firearms, and you put your name and the date and that kind of stuff, and you put it inside the case, and then you close it up and you lock it, and then they say, "Go over there,"
Yep.
and you go to either oversized luggage or wherever that airport's TSA screening is. Usually, someone of the airline will escort you over there. In Denver, it's a huge pain in the ass. You have to go like upstairs from where you check in an elevator, and then across the entire airport into the TSA screening. So I would recommend, another tip would be, if you're flying with firearms, put in a buffer even earlier
Yes.
than when you want to arrive and be at your gate. Factor in a little buffer because it can slow the process down. It shouldn't, but like you and I were talking about, not every TSA or Delta or Southwest or whatever airline representative is going to be familiar with firearms or comfortable
Yes.
with firearms, and that could slow down your process. Even if you're complying with all the rules and all the TSA guidelines and everything like that, you want to make it as smooth and seamless a process as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of that may very well come down to the airport that you're flying into or out of, right? And so, for instance, you mentioned Denver. Denver is kind of a pain in the ass. You contrast that with Colorado Springs, which is just a couple hours south of there. I've flown in and out of there a few times, and those guys see it all the time because it's a smaller airport, and you got to imagine there's a lot of folks flying in there that are going on hunting trips, and
Yep.
so there the TSA checkpoint is right there when you first walk into the airport. I mean, it's very convenient. You don't have to go anywhere. Those guys see it, and they are, you bring your case in. They're like, all right, firearm, come over here. You know, make you fill out the form, ask you the simple questions. All this information is accurate to the best of your knowledge. Yes, go through, do a quick check of the gun case, and you're on your way. But again, that's going to be very dependent on the airport. And so, one of the things I found is that we've talked about this before and had a little bit of debate is whether or not you need the TSA approved locks. I I have not used those. I've just always used standard like master lock or whatever with the key. I always put two locks on my gun case. I keep two keys with me, one on my person at all times, and another in my carry-on bag,
Yep.
secure in a discreet location, just as a backup. But most of the time, when the TSA guys or the airline folks see that you have your locks and you're going and you're following that and you're not just trying to walk in there with a unrestrained firearm, then they generally pretty comfortable.
Yep. Yeah, very much so. I just Googled or whatever, searched on Amazon TSA approved locks and ordered those. It's like a little four code, little spinny thing that you can lock and unlock. I know Luke is very against TSA locks because like anybody can open up that lock if they have the master key.
Yep.
So do your own research on that. Another thing I do, I take a couple steps extra that you don't really have to do. Your firearm has to be in a locked hard-sided case, right?
Yep.
So whether that lock is built in or if there's holes for padlocks, you have to have those padlocks. Um, so it has to be in a locked hard-sided case, has to be unloaded. Um, and I go a couple steps further, again, just in case that TSA agent is not familiar with firearms, or that individual just doesn't know what they're looking at and they're just like, whoa, gun, right? I take the bolt out and I keep the bolt separate. Like I have a little, there's a foam insert inside my Pelican case, and I just have a little spot for my bolt. I will either put a red chamber flag, or I will run a cable lock through where the bolt goes, in the rifle, and just lock it, and it's bright red, and very clearly to somebody who may not be familiar with firearms, that is clearly whatever, not supposed to be there if you're going to use a gun. And then I pull my magazine out and I keep it up next to my bolt as well.
Yep.
That's extra. No, don't have to do that. But again, I don't want, when you're going on this hunting trip and you've been planning it for a year and you put in for tags and you draw on the lottery system, and you don't want to be anything that you could that can slow you down. You just want to
Yep.
mitigate as much as possible. So that's what I do. Your ammo can be in the gun case as well. It needs to be in its original box, which is really important to them.
Yep.
You're also allowed to fly with like 11 pounds of ammo, which is like wild.
Yeah.
So, so like
We
load it up.
we took a ton out to Wyoming because we
Yep.
hunt with
A couple,
rifles and
couple of them boys needed it.
yeah, exactly. It was a good thing we did. So I mean, yeah, and it's a good tip too there because, I would say depending on how much you're planning on flying with firearms, for you and I, like we're not doing it every week of hunting season, but like I plan on taking, the goal is a Western trip a year minimum, for the foreseeable future. So I'm gonna fly a fair bit, at least for an Eastern boy. So I went ahead and invested in that, that nice Pelican vault case. The advantage, and it's the large one, can actually fit two guns, which is nice if you're flying with a buddy out of the same airport. You can put both your firearms in one case, and minimize how many things you're actually having to check. The other advantage there too, you mentioned the ammo, which I've always flown with my ammo in the same case as the gun, in its own original packaging, whether that's a box of rifle cartridges or muzzleloader or whatever. As long as it's in the original packaging, I have not had an issue. But the other advantage of having a good solid case that has plenty of extra room is I also put, my binos in there. I put my knives in there.
Knives. Yep.
Yep. Anything, there's all these different accessories that we're taking with us, especially for multi-day hunting trips. And a lot of times, I try to minimize, be as minimalist as I can with whatever gear I'm taking out. And so sometimes I'll just, take a carry-on and the gun case, and that's it, and I can fit everything in there. And so having the extra space in a very well built and protected case like the Pelican, or just something that provides the room and the quality, allows you options to put other stuff in there that doesn't take up room in your carry on or other bag. And so always take multiple knives. You want to have backups, optics, spot and scope, binoculars, rangefinder. All of that is nice to have right there in your gun case, and then it's all consolidated. The downside to that is if something happens and all your stuff's in one place and they lose it, then you're kind of hosed at that point. But knock on wood, hasn't happened to me yet. So that's kind of the way I do it.
That's why I always keep my tag on my person. I keep it in my carry-on.
That stays in the carry-on.
So you can at least, we'll find a rifle, right? I'll go to Walmart and buy a rifle, like whatever. Yep. But you can't hunt without that tag. So
no.
Buying a good case is really important. Don't skimp. The first case I bought, I was skimping because I was broke and I was being cheap, and that was dumb. And I watched a guy sling it. I was on the plane in Salt Lake City, and I watched him fucking throw that thing on the conveyor belt, and it like, and I was like, oh my gosh, right? So you're gonna have to confirm zero. So bring ammo to redo that. We had a couple guys whose scopes got knocked during travel, and shooting at different elevation. If you're coming from elevation, I guess we can go into that in a whole nother episode, but you're gonna want to be able to confirm zero. So don't skimp on ammo.
No.
Bring plenty, and don't skimp on the actual case itself, because they don't give a shit, right?
No, dude. The first time I saw, I think it was actually an airline person. I think it was American, and same thing. She just tossed my gun after just checking it, and it was funny because when she checked it, she was very thorough. She was very, I would say, professional. And I was like, cool, this is, she seemed to not have a whole lot of experience with this, but I was like, oh, okay, so she gets it. Lock up the gun case, and she just chucks it on the belt. I'm like, oh, lady, that's my rifle with my scope, and
very expensive.
You're killing me. So it's, we harp on this frequently, but there's places to, in my opinion, to spend a little bit extra, and having a well-built gun case that's going to protect your stuff for flying is one of those places where I'm willing to invest a little bit.
Heck yeah, for sure. The other thing I do that's overkill is I print out the TSA regulations for whatever airline I'm flying on, and I highlight so I can go right to them. I come with my receipts. I read the airline policy and print them out and have a hard copy. Again, in case that TSA or airline personnel is not familiar with flying with firearms, I don't want to leave any question marks. I want them to know I've done my homework, not in an arrogant way or like a got you moment, but you want to be able to cover your ass when you're doing it. And dude, it's like way easy. It's like not a big deal.
Yeah, and that's probably a good way to round this out, is like at the end of the day, people fly with firearms and bows and whatnot every day. I mean, it happens all the time. If you can make sure, like you said, your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, you make the TSA or the airline person, whoever's checking your firearm, if you make their job as easy as possible and you convey to them that you've thought this through and you've taken precautions, then I think you're going to have a very enjoyable, pleasant experience. And you're going to probably, if you've never done it before, you're probably going to be surprised at how routine it is.
Yep, absolutely. I guess one final tip I would give is you can buy extra foam on Amazon, foam inserts for your gun cases, because they get smushed and they fall out, putting your gun in and out in camp and stuff like that. So I just buy extra foam and replace it If your case has that cutout foam inside, replace it wherever I can, just to make sure there's enough cushion in there. And oh yeah, and then picking up your gun, it's obviously not going to be on the regular carousel for luggage, so you go pick it up at the oversized luggage, usually at the far end of the hallway, which is
Yep.
oftentimes inconvenient. But I've been sitting around for a while waiting on a gun, and it was down there the whole time. So you
Yeah.
pick it up at a different location with all the golf clubs and skis.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. That's it. Super easy. Go fly with guns. It's a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't be intimidated. It's not that big of a deal.
Yep. Hell yeah. Yeah. If you're pinching pennies, split the cost of the gun case with a buddy. That's what Cole and I did, and we just share ours because we're on every trip together, anyways.
So yeah.
And then hope it shows up.
That's all you can do.
That's all you could do. Cool. Anything else you want to add, dude?
No, man, that's about all I got.
Too easy.
Let's plan some Western hunts.
Let's do it. Actually, speaking of, yeah, let's talk. I'll text you.
Sounds good, man.
I've got an idea. All right. Appreciate you, dude.
Yep.
Listeners, appreciate the hell out of you guys. We'll talk to y'all next week.